Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Write your favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Let's get started. What is the most costly mistake that you or another employee has made at work? I had a part-time job at a small supply and maintenance shop for airplanes. They had opened a brand new hangar nearby and purchased brand new tool sets. Why not arrange for the local idiot to pick them up? He was visiting family in the same city as the tool supplier over the holiday weekend. Win-win situation. They buy him a ticket for Wednesday, and he picks up the tool sets on Monday after his vacation by renting a box truck. My sense is that it wasn't all that much faster or significantly less expensive. Anyway, he rents the truck and picks up the tools the day he gets to town, then proceeds to park the unlocked truck somewhere in the city. Monday, the empty truck is picked up. Doesn't call the police, the company, Tyrone, nobody gets a call. He returned with the empty truck. Cost the business almost $150,000 and cost the local idiot his job. When I was testing video games, our senior producer accidentally put the wrong year on the first-party submission paperwork, which led to it being turned down. This meant that our game didn't make it to stores on time, which cost the company $25 million in fines and penalties, not to mention the money they lost from people coming to buy it on the day it was supposed to come out, but found it wasn't yet. Not meeting the release date also meant that almost every developer lost their bonus, which cost them all tens of thousands of dollars in lost pay. How do you not know what year it is? What happened to the senior producer? He was fired on the spot when the losses became known. In a building that made silicon, we worked on a response floor. Amorphous powder is a waste product that builds up on reactor parts and can catch fire. All of the parts would have to go through the wash between growing rounds. The wash was backed up that day, so two screens were stacked next to each other on the floor. It was about 15 feet tall. This jerk was putting silicon rocks under the floor scrubber so that it would throw them out. A screen gets hit by one of these rocks. The collision makes sparks. The filter starts to burn. It makes the filter next to it catch fire. They were stacked next to reactors that were already running. On one part of the floor, the reactors had to be turned off. The filters were melted by the time the fires were put out. It cost $350,000 for each filter, plus the product that was lost when reactors were turned off. It cost more than $1 million for this jerk to play games. He was immediately fired and permanently banned. I was in charge of a database. I went on a trip. Even though I was on vacation, people were able to text, call, and email me. They got an auto-response, but most of the time I dealt with things quickly because I knew that I would rather work 5% while I was on holiday than come back to monkeys screaming and the circus on fire. While I was away, my boss learned something about the data. Let's call them Bob A, Bob B, and Bob C. They all measure the same thing, but they do it in different ways. It had been more than a year since my database had been up and running. He got what he learned wrong and really thought we should have been reporting Bob B, but we were instead reporting Bob A. He told the seller to work extra hours to change A to B without telling me anything. It cost around $50,000. We didn't have much money left over though, so this was a very big company with a very big database. When I get back to town, he tells me what he has done and is really proud of himself. I'm crazy because we really needed A. We had to pay the seller an extra $50,000 to change it back to A. To be honest, our budget was big enough that the money wasn't the worst thing about this. The worst part was that we had to tell thousands of users that they had to redo their reports if they had pulled them in the last 3 weeks, which included the Measure Bob. I actually felt bad for him because he had to work extra hard to fix the situation with the management, but even that didn't save him. He was put on probation and fired shortly thereafter. This also gives you an idea of why I responded to my coworkers while I was on vacation. I did it to avoid this exact kind of blankety-blank circus fire. I was working for a medical manufacturer making freezers and refrigerators for labs and vaccine/blood bag storage and transport. Not something to mess around with, because you could ruin someone's work on a cancer cure. We got our copper tubes and rolls that were, I think, about 1.5 miles long. The first thing you do with a big roll like that is put pressurized nozzles on both ends to test the pressure. Well, after about 4 years of never having a bad roll, an employee quit checking them, to save time. After a few months, a bad batch shows up, but he doesn't check it. We don't find out until about halfway through the line when the brazing leak test is done. All of the copper in the factory is scrap. Just our line had over 200 units thrown away. I don't know how many more or less were thrown away on the other 3 lines. The plant was closed for about 30 hours. Based on what I know, the company lost about $6 million because of the units that were thrown away on our line alone. It's hard to say how much money was lost because of the extra time or the other 3/4 of the plant. The person I work with at a company that makes cars had the smallest attention span I've ever seen at work. He was hard to teach and insisted on doing more than one thing at a time, even though he couldn't do one thing right. As part of his job, this guy had to take parts orders from customers and enter them into our system. He kept putting decimal places where they didn't belong and booked an order for $1.4 million that was only $140,000. Before the mistake in the order was found, it had already cost our company a lot of money on materials, labor, and shipping that were not needed. It also cost us a lot of trouble with our books for about 2 years. He has been fired. I work for a beer business. Our drought beer was coming with major problems because of problems with the packaging. For example, kegs were leaking and there were problems with the carbonation. Some dumb F thought it would save money to move from steel kegs to plastic, one-way shipping, and skimped on the quality of the materials. It has cost us around €1 million so far in replacement stock, write-offs, and other costs. During a call, the new MD from my area suggested that we stop selling draft. That's about 45% of our sales for a very important name. I told them that wasn't a choice because it would ruin our brand, our distribution, and our reputation for a long time. As things stand, we were able to keep paying to deal with the problems, even though it hurt our budgets a lot in the short run. MD demanded that we try out his idea with only half of our accounts since no one would notice. I insisted that this was a scorched earth strategy and that the obvious answer was to buy enough steel kegs. He brought up the issue again and told me to go ahead with the plan. I'm now mad at the absolute nonsense I'm seeing, so I tell him straight out that it's the stupidest idea I've ever heard and that I won't try it as an answer until he puts it in writing. 2 of the other managers didn't agree with my plan. A huge mistake that already cost us $1 million got even worse and cost us twice as much. After a few months, I quit. As I thought would happen, it killed the company. A year after I left, the business shut down. I told you so. What is the most absurd reason your HOA has brought you into conflict? Here's a solar contractor. To the chagrin of most HOAs, who are often quite keen to flex and flaunt what little power they have, most states have rules that prohibit HOAs from telling homeowners they can't have solar. We once received approval to install solar panels on a home in South Carolina where this regulation is non-existent, but after the panels had already been installed on the roof, we learned the HOA had decided to revoke their consent for the project. The HOA apparently favored the other provider and wants to put all other solar contractors on a blacklist because someone else made the decision to install solar power around the same time with a different company. We detest dealing with HOA, so I guess it's alright. We appreciate the heads up so we can learn now rather than when the next project is in the middle. But instead, they want us to take down the solar panels we've already put up and convince the homeowner to purchase new ones from this other business. Now, some individuals are unaware of the fact that solar panels cannot be returned within 30 days like a refrigerator. They're drilled into the roof. This is the equivalent to hiring a contractor to build new floors or windows, then telling them you don't like them and demanding we remove them so you can hire another contractor. If there are any flooring or window people here, perhaps you have also experienced this stupid demand. The HOA requested that we release the homeowner from their loan, which was obtained through a bank, not us, remove the panels, and then resell them as used panels. This would require 2 days of labor in addition to permitting, design work, etc. Furthermore, they threatened to fine the homeowner salesperson $50 each day until we remove them from the home, as if they had the authority to fine anyone, even if they didn't reside in their area. We laughed a lot about that and told them we would never work with them again. We also warned them not to call us when the other firm sees what a monster they are, and that we would spread the word to discourage people from purchasing or remodeling a property in the HOA. Due to the HOA and this effing wicked, twisted couple who lived across the street from us, my family was forced to leave our former home of 12 years. It all began with a straightforward request. Their driveway aligned with the area in front of our home where automobiles were usually parked because they lived immediately in front of us. The disabled man who lives across the street operates a large vehicle. He asked us to stop parking there, and my father replied he would inform the rest of us. He should have remembered, but instead my mother parked in the worst spot. They started screaming at my father nonstop, and it escalated into a massive altercation. Since that day more than 2 years ago, there have been numerous HOA complaints and court appearances. After a while, the HOA essentially informed us, look, these people are crazy, all you're doing is parking in the street. We had received a few complaints through the HOA. For 4 months straight, they contacted me by phone or email every single day. They also began filming us via the window of their living room with a little camera. When we received our first court summons, we discovered this. They provided video proof of us that was recorded continuously. They sought for any infractions of the HOA rules, no matter how small. My dad is constructing a Mustang from the ground up. Consequently, there will be a lot of grinding, welding, and other noises. For over a year, this has been occurring. We ultimately had to get rid of the Mustang, widen our driveway to accommodate all 5 vehicles, and direct everyone to park somewhere else. When we had a friend over, the front of his car was in the spot, so the woman even contacted the police at midnight. Short version, they obtained an injunction prohibiting our parking, and we obtained one prohibiting their recording of us during the first year. They were pursuing my parents' money the following year. They planned to file a formal lawsuit against the HOA and us for failing to take action against them. We made the decision to relocate after a string of irritating court appearances and excessive neighborhood friction. They didn't get a cent from us and had to pay all their legal fees themselves. My parents' HOA are a bunch of jerks. They've recently quit off trying altogether to restrain them, although for a while they were difficult to manage. Only our backyard neighbors and my parents' composter could truly see it because it was tucked beneath a back porch. Despite the fact that it's beneficial to the environment, they made them remove it. Given that the backyard sloped steeply into the neighbor's yard, there was a serious erosion problem in the backyard. In order to solve the issue, my father built a flat shelf of land halfway up the hill, which we frequently used as children to camp out in the yard and play. He told HOA to screw off when they tried to fine him. When they acquired a rain barrel to store water and enable them to irrigate the garden, that was the tipping point. Someone snapped a photo and informed the HOA. He rebuked them for trying to fine him, threatened to sue them, etc., and we haven't heard from them again. I find it so ridiculous that all of the infractions are not unsightly because they're hidden and they're all useful to the neighbor/environment. The HOA is a giant stick up their A. Oh, Christ almighty, do I have stories to tell. About 10 years ago, my parents became the first residents in our loft complex. The structure wasn't even entirely finished. The Homeowners Association never brought up my skating in the communal garage after 8 years, mostly only during the day and at night on New Year's Eve. Instead of simply alerting me, the, at the time, 18-year-old son of the HOA's most senior members, they changed the construction code, making skating in the garage a violation punishable by a $1,000 fine. It wasn't even like they could hear me skating. They were just irrationally upset by the sight of me skating close to their automobiles. After my parents moved in, another family followed them. Their daughter always treated me with a lot of friendliness. The father was an architect, but more of a handyman kind. In essence, he repaired all of the pipes and constructed numerous shelves for the garage. He and his wife alternated as our HOA's president and accountant every 2 years because no one else really desired the position. Returning to the daughter, she attended an expensive private kindergarten through 8th grade school just as I did, and at the request of our parents, we would learn Chinese together at our various schools. She departed for the University of Miami around 3 years ago, just when her father's architectural firm was having financial difficulties. He began spending a lot of time at home, and eventually we noticed him working as a server at a restaurant across the street because his business had essentially failed and he was in financial trouble. While we felt sorry for him, we paid no heed to the fact that his daughter was still residing in Florida, meaning they undoubtedly had some money left over. We were unaware that his wife had been defrauding the homeowners of almost $85,000 while he was in charge of the HOA by failing to keep accurate documents. Many homeowners demanded their eviction after this was made public or a fee equal to the sum seized. A lawsuit has been filed against them. First, they were fired from their positions on the HOA board. After all their financial frauds were uncovered, their property was seized and they were kicked out. Thank you for listening to these stories. If you want to see new videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the like button.